Karen sent fake cops to arrest me. She didn't know I trained the real ones. I never thought I'd see the day when my own home would become the battlefield for a war I didn't start. My name's Jackson Cole, 32 years old. I work for the Department of Homeland Security and Critical Incident Response, the kind of role where you don't talk about what you do for a living at dinner parties, because people either panic or ask too many damn questions. I bought my home in Fairlawn Grove a year ago, a peaceful neighborhood in the outskirts of Henderson, Nevada, clean lawns, quiet nights, retired couples with perfect rose bushes. I'd picked it because it didn't have a formal HOA, or so I thought. It was my sanctuary, after years of covert operations, chasing cyber threats, and conducting internal integrity audits on law enforcement. I just wanted peace. I needed it. Hell, I deserved it. That was until she showed up, Karen Lexington. If perfection had a face, a pearl necklace, and a warped sense of authority, it was her. She looked like she was carved out of a real estate ad from the early 2000s, all pastel blazers and a voice that could slice steel. She introduced herself the day after I moved in, holding a homemade welcome packet with the seal of something called the Fairlawn Residential Integrity Board. That name alone was a red flag. I asked her flat out if this was an HOA. She smiled. Oh, not officially, but we do enforce the standards of the community. We have authority. I remember blinking. Authority from whom? She tilted her head like I was the confused one. From ourselves, of course. That was my first warning. I didn't listen. It started small, as all bad things do. A week after I moved in, a paper notice was taped to my front door. It wasn't from the city. It wasn't from the county. It was a printed sheet of paper on pastel letterhead that read, Notice of Non-Compliance. You have violated the aesthetic uniformity guidelines of the Fairlawn Residential Integrity Board. Violation: dark brown mailbox. Approved shade is Tuscan walnut. You have seven days to comply. Failure will result in escalating corrective actions. Corrective actions. I crumpled it and tossed it. There wasn't a signature. There wasn't a legal citation. Just a gold sticker that looked like it came from a kid's sticker book. I replaced nothing. 2 days later, my mailbox was repainted. Not replaced, not removed, repainted, with a sticky coat of what I assume was Tuscan walnut from a hardware store discount bin, sloppy, still tacky, and dribbling down the post. Karen stood across the street that morning, arms folded, sipping coffee. No words, just a smug nod. That was the first true move in her psychological warfare. Things escalated from there. I received citations every other day. My grass was half an inch too long. My porch lights were off-brand. I'd left a recycling bin out 10 minutes after the scheduled window. None of this had legal basis. I knew that. But every time I brought it up with neighbors, the ones who still dared to talk to me, they shook their heads and whispered things like, she has connections. She'll make your life hell. She got old man Harris fined for putting up wind chimes. But I wasn't like Harris. I wasn't afraid of Karen Lexington. Not because I thought I was special, but because I was trained to sniff out abusive authority like hers. And I knew, deep in my gut, she was escalating towards something dangerous. Still, I tried to ignore her, until the fence incident. It was a Tuesday morning. I just finished a run, sweaty, earbuds in, and I saw two men in high-vis vests taking measurements on my side yard. One of them had a notepad. The other was holding a measuring wheel against the edge of my property. I stepped out. Excuse me, can I help you? They looked at each other. We're conducting a setback compliance review for the HOA. I laughed. There is no HOA. They hesitated. We were hired by the Fairlawn Residential Integrity Board. That damn name again. I asked for their IDs. One showed a driver's license. The other a printed badge that looked like it had been made on a lunch break at Office Depot. Get off my property. I told them. Karen came marching down the sidewalk 5 minutes later, practically vibrating with false outrage. You're obstructing an official review, she barked. I told her to leave. She pointed at me, eyes wild. You're one of those, the ones who think rules don't apply to them. We'll see what the board has to say. That's when I made the first mistake. I said, I am the rules. Karen, you really want to play this game with me? She blinked. Her face changed. And I swear to God, I saw something click in her brain the way a narcissist sees a personal challenge as a declaration of war. She turned and stormed off. 3 days later, I was arrested. I use that word lightly, because it wasn't real. I came home from the grocery store to find two men waiting in my driveway, dressed like low-budget cops from a student film. They had fake tactical vests that said Private Enforcement Division, tin star badges, and a printed citation that said Violation Criminal 47B, Refusal to comply with community restoration orders. They tried to cuff me. Tried. I calmly asked for identification, real ID, real warrants, real jurisdiction. One of them flashed a plastic card that said Fair Lawn Authority Officer. The other grunted and reached for my wrist. That's when I told them to back the hell off and I pulled out my own badge. Homeland Security. The silence that followed was delicious. You're detaining a federal officer without legal cause. I said, do you know how many years that carries in federal prison? Their faces drained of color. They bolted. One tripped over a sprinkler head. I let them run, but not before I took photos. Every face, every license plate, every fake badge. Karen watched from her porch. No fear, just fury. I'd embarrassed her. Publicly. She would not let that go. And I wasn't going to let her continue this charade. After the fake arrest attempt, the illusion of peace in Fairlawn Grove shattered completely. I wasn't just angry. I was activated. See, when you spend over a decade working internal investigations for Homeland Security, you learn how to think like the enemy. You also learn that systems of control, even ones that aren't real, can still ruin people's lives if no one challenges them. That's what Karen had built here, a psychological regime. A fake HOA that pretended to govern, fine, and intimidate, while operating completely outside the law. But what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I had access. Access to databases, to old permits, to everything I needed to untangle this fraud. I filed an official inquiry with the Clark County Planning Commission. The address of Fairlawn Residential Integrity Board listed on Karen's documents didn't exist in public zoning or development databases. I checked title records, HOA incorporation filings, and neighborhood association registries. Nothing. The Fairlawn Grove subdivision had never had a legally recognized HOA. The original builder had filed for one in the late 90s, but the paperwork was never processed. It was dead before it was born. So who the hell was giving Karen authority? I found the answer inside an old municipal records archive. Back in 2003, a woman named Judith Lexington. Karen's mother had started a nonprofit called Fairlawn Beautification Watch. It was just a volunteer gardening club. Karen had taken over that defunct group 10 years ago and renamed it as the Fairlawn Residential Integrity Board. Then she printed her own decals, designed her own citations, and created a parallel HOA that only existed in her head. But here's where it gets darker. I found bank records, a community fund, a Venmo trail tied to her violation fees. Dozens of neighbors, especially the elderly, had been paying her real money for fines she made up. Over $72,000 in 2 years. Some people were paying $50 for leaving trash cans out. Others paid $200 compliance fees to repaint fences. One retired woman even sold her car after being told it violated the image standards of the neighborhood. That wasn't eccentricity. That was fraud. I wanted to go public. But first, I needed evidence. Ironclad. No room to doubt evidence. So I went to see someone who knew Karen longer than anyone, Tom Jansen. He was a retired firefighter, lived 4 houses down from me. I'd seen him walking with a limp every morning. He never spoke to Karen. When I knocked on his door, he opened just wide enough to see me. I need your help. I said, I'm looking into Karen, and I think it goes deeper than anyone realizes. His eyes lit up. That old fire rekindled. He opened the door fully and gestured me inside. I've been waiting 20 years for someone like you, he muttered. He handed me a binder. Inside were photos, letters, even recorded voicemails from Karen, threatening him over lawn decor. Christmas lights, and hosting veterans' BBQs. She once had his dog reported as dangerous. The dog was a 14-year-old beagle. "This woman is a tyrant," Tom said, and everyone's too scared to say it out loud. "Not anymore," I said. That night, I called in favors. My buddy Lewis at the Bureau of Consumer Protection, my friend Amanda at the State Licensing Division. I even reached out to an old DHS contact who worked financial crimes now. I laid it all out, the fake HOA, the fake officers, the fake fines, the real money. And then I made a plan. It was time to fight fire with federal-grade fire. I created a briefing packet, 28 pages with evidence, timelines, photos, victim statements, and audio logs. I made 10 copies. Then I went door to door. Some slammed their door, some cried, some whispered, "Thank you," and some enough joined me. We formed a quiet alliance. Neighbors who were done being bullied, people who'd paid thousands to Karen's phony board and wanted their lives back. And together, we planned the takedown. We set the date for the operation Saturday morning, 9:00 a.m. Karen hosted her so-called Integrity Board quarterly meeting in the community clubhouse every 3 months, like clockwork. This time, it would be different. This time, we would be ready. 2 hours before the meeting, I met with my team, not the DHS one, but the neighbors who joined me. I handed out the briefing packets, assigned roles, confirmed the presence of 2 real law enforcement officers I discreetly invited. They weren't there to arrest anyone yet that would come later. They were observers, official eyes to validate what was about to unfold. Karen had no idea what was coming. By 9:05 a.m., the clubhouse was packed. Karen sat at the front with her usual air of superiority, flanked by 2 Integrity Board enforcers, the same ones who'd tried to arrest me. They were back in uniform again, this time wearing cheap plastic body cams clipped to their chest. I nearly laughed. It was like watching cosplay at a Comic-Con for sociopaths. She called the meeting to order. "As you all know," she said in that saccharine, sharp tone, "some recent challenges to our authority have threatened the order and beauty of our community." I raised my hand. She ignored it. "But let me assure you, the board remains empowered to act decisively." "I have a question," I said loudly, standing. Murmurs broke out. Eyes turned. Karen's lips curled into a tight smile. "Mr. Cole, this is not the time for theatrics." "No," I said, "but it is the time for truth." I walked to the front, holding a thick binder. "I'd like to submit official evidence to this room," I said, "that this organization, the Fairlawn Residential Integrity Board, has no legal authority, no state or county registration, and is being used to extort money under false pretenses." Gasps. Some stood. Others whispered. Karen's face drained of color. "You have no right to. I do," I said, pulling out my federal badge. "Because I work for Homeland Security, and you tried to have me kidnapped by 2 unlicensed private citizens impersonating police officers." Dead silence. I turned to the crowd. "Everything you've paid, the fines, the membership fees, the penalties, all of it went into Karen Lexington's personal account, over $70,000. One of the enforcers stood up. "That's a lie," so I hit play on my phone. "If you don't repaint that fence, you'll be fined $300 and reported. I have authority here, and I will not tolerate rebellion. Jackson, I made this community what it is. I will tear you down if I have to." Karen's voice, crystal clear, her own recorded voicemail from 3 weeks ago. I looked at the cops in the back of the room. One gave me a subtle nod. Then the room exploded. Some shouted in support. Others screamed betrayal. The elderly woman who'd sold her car sobbed in the front row. Karen tried to leave. I blocked her path. "You're not going anywhere," I said. "Get out of my way," she shrieked. "Go ahead," I said, smiling. "Push a federal officer." She stopped. Her hands trembled. The officers approached. Not to arrest, not yet, but to escort her to her home. She was advised not to leave town, not to destroy evidence. The state attorney general's office had been notified. Investigations would begin that Monday. She didn't speak a word. She just walked out, humiliated, as dozens of neighbors followed, some jeering, some stunned. And just like that, the illusion of her power was broken. But the story didn't end there, because accountability had only just begun. The very next day, we held a town hall, this time led by us, the people who lived here, who'd been bullied, silenced, extorted. We formed a real neighborhood committee, with legal registration, with actual transparency. We submitted all evidence to the Nevada Department of Justice. My DHS contacts worked with the state to ensure no stone was left unturned. Karen's house was searched, her fake citations, her board records, even her custom decals all seized as evidence. A month later, she was formally charged with multiple counts of fraud, impersonating a public official, and attempted kidnapping. The best part, some of the same board members who'd stood beside her, they turned state's witness, told everything, how she controlled them, threatened to ruin their credit, reported them to CPS, called employers, wrote anonymous letters. Karen Lexington, Queen of Fairlawn Grove, stripped of title, facing prison, publicly disgraced. The morning after Karen was charged, I took my coffee to the porch and watched the sunrise. It felt different, not brighter, not louder, but lighter, like the air had lost some invisible weight that had pressed down on us all for too long. She was gone, and for the first time in years, so was the fear. The news broke the following Monday. Local news stations, regional outlets, then national. Fake HOA president charged with fraud. Targeted Homeland Security agent Nevada woman accused of extorting neighbors. Impersonating law enforcement justice in Fairlawn neighborhood. Overthrows tyrant board leader. They painted her as the villain she was. But they also told our story how a fake system of control, left unchecked, nearly became real enough to destroy lives. That truth struck a nerve across the country. I got emails from people in Texas, in Oregon, even in Canada, folks who said they'd faced their own Karen running a rogue HOA. Some had been fined thousands. Some had moved away. Others had just given up. But now, they said, they felt seen and emboldened. In Fairlawn Grove, we got to work. The fake citations were shredded. We reimbursed victims from the restitution fund Karen was ordered to pay as part of her plea deal. Seniors who'd paid her lawn violations got their money back. The woman who sold her car, her family set up a GoFundMe. It hit its goal in 6 hours. We even held a block party, not a forced community beautification day, but a real gathering. Kids on bikes, barbecue grills, lawn games, laughter. Tom, the retired firefighter, gave a toast. I watched this place crumble under one woman's lie, and I watched it rise again when one man told the truth. Don't ever forget, the law isn't always a badge. Sometimes it's just standing up for your neighbor. Karen never returned. Her sentencing was short but sharp: 5 years probation, 500 hours of community service, full restitution, and a permanent ban from forming or leading any residential governance group again. They made sure the record would follow her. No more neighborhoods for her to rule. No more boards to create. The enforcers who helped her find and ban from any security-related work. Justice had teeth this time, but I didn't go back to Washington. I was offered a promotion back east, a desk job, more money. I turned it down. This neighborhood, broken, bruised, but finally healing, was worth more than a paycheck. I stayed, and I helped finish what we started. We built something new. A real neighborhood watch, legally filed, transparently run. We held public meetings, published budgets, took turns leading, rotating leadership. No presidents for life. We replaced Karen's fear with trust. And slowly, people came back to life. Sometimes I walk by her old house. The new owners planted wildflowers where she once installed turf to maintain uniformity. They hung wind chimes, and a banner from their porch says, "Welcome, all, always." It's a message I wish every community would embrace. And that brings me to you, reader, because this isn't just my story. If there's a Karen in your neighborhood, if there's a fake HOA, a bully in disguise, someone misusing made-up power to control others, I hope you remember what we learned here. You don't need to work for Homeland Security to fight injustice. You just need to stand up, speak out, tell the truth, and refuse to be silent. What would you do if your neighborhood turned against you? Have you ever seen a fake HOA or a bully abuse power? Would you rise up or walk away, share your story, speak your truth? Let's make sure what happened here never happens again. Justice for communities. Narsh, real authority, only say, no to fake HOAs.